It's time for our first bit of work on Mr. Big by Ed Veer. And we're not going to be asking you to create a story map of the story. We're going to be asking you to do something a little bit different. Sometimes when you have a story, we ask children to complete a story mountain. A lot of stories start off slow, they build up, they come up to some kind of big problem, and then there's a solution to that problem, a climax, and then the story levels off, a bit like a hill or a mountain. Now, I don't think the story of Mr. Big follows that same kind of pattern. And also, what I'd like us to think about is not just the pattern of the story, but about how Mr. Big is feeling at different parts of the story. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a feelings chart that is a bit like a timeline through the story and charts how Mr. Big is feeling at different points in the story. What emotions is he going through? And you'll want to make sure you listen back to the story of Mr. Big again, perhaps taking down some notes. You might need to listen to it a few times as you go through, adding more information as you go along. Now, I had a little think about this, and the way I thought about it is, it starts off out, he's not particularly happy at the beginning of the story because he's big and everybody else is ignoring him. And actually, I think his mood gets worse as the story goes on until he kind of hits rock bottom, but then discovers a piano. And his mood perhaps lifts a little bit as he starts to play, but only a little bit. And then at other points in the story, later on, he receives a letter. And he might be feeling a little bit confused when that letter comes in. That's a good adjective to describe how he was feeling when the letter arrives. How does he feel when he reads the letter and is invited? Well, I think his mood is definitely improving. And we reach the end of the story, and he's right up here, isn't he? How's he feeling towards the end of the story when he's playing with his big band and he's out there with all his fans coming to ask for his autograph? Now, I'd like you to draw your own story map. It might look like this. You might think it looks a little bit different. That's okay. And around your story, not story map, what did we call it? We called it like a mood chart, didn't we? What I'd like you to do is to write down a little very short description of what's happening in the story. So it could just be one or two words: buys a piano, gets letter, plays with the band, giving autographs. But around it, I would like you to write down some emotions that he's feeling at those different parts in the story. Now, try to avoid using boring adjectives to describe them, like happy and sad. And also try to avoid using the same adjective more than once during this activity. So around each of these points in the story, you'll have some adjectives. You may want to write some sentences as a challenge, which would explain how he's feeling at a different point. Perhaps using because would be your conjunction of choice to do that. So have a think about it, listen to the story, perhaps jot down some ideas about how he's feeling at different parts, and then turn that into your mood chart, and then send it through to us if you can. We'd love to see them. year2@hamiltonacademy.org.uk is our email address. So have a go at that. Hope you're enjoying the story. Perhaps even listen to a little bit of jazz yourself if your parents can stand it. Okay, enjoy.